while I do think they give us quite a bit of training before you get your license, it misses so many of the important things. It's not the stuff that matters.
I forgot that I didn't tell him we're buying a house. And just like, wait, Instagram? That's how I found out?
I feel like as women, our brains don't turn off.
No, I actually think that's one of the reasons why more women need to be investing.
Real estate has truly changed your family dramatically.
Oh my gosh, just a matter of time when they're gonna lay me off. I mean, I'm a huge expense to them. So when Rachel was like, FICA, who's FICA? Would they take my money?
God has always taken care of me, even if I didn't realize it was happening in the situation.
I'm here sharing inspiring stories about fearless entrepreneurial women to help encourage you to live your life unapologetically. I'm your host, Heather Blankenship. Welcome to the Unapologetically Me podcast. Today's episode, I'm going to be talking with Miss Ingryd Hernandez. Y'all, I posted on my Instagram saying, I'm going to be in Phoenix. What successful women do I need to know there that I should be interviewing for my podcast? And 3 different people that I'm really close to were like, oh my gosh, Heather, you have got to talk to Ingryd. She's a really unique woman who lives that go-giver personality, which I absolutely love in a person. Let's dive in and you'll see why so many people recommended her.
When I posted on my story that I was coming to Phoenix and wanted to know what females I had to meet and record a podcast episode with, 3 different people that I absolutely love was like, oh my gosh, Heather, you've got to know Ingryd. So you have done such a great job getting to know people and making yourself notice. So many people should know. How did you do that?
One, I believe, is aligning myself with Pace Morby, who's such a giving investor.
Okay, Pace, when he introduces you to someone, I swear he has this chat GPT version of wow. If you were to put in chat GPT, make me sound way more amazing than I ever was, that's Pace
1,000%. He's so good at it.
Yeah, the gang of coming up with great ways. Yes, it ready sequel.
But when I was also exploring becoming an investor, I would go to local meetups. I would try to get to know people. And I think part of the values that I have always had kind of enhanced through that process. Because once I heard people say, you need to be a go-giver and provide more value. And I think if you really take that approach in the way that you're doing anything, for whatever reason, it'll come back to you. So, but I also do a live podcast that we've been doing for over 2 years, and we go live. And I also think that has been very, very helpful. Even though our numbers aren't amazing Heather Blankenship numbers, they're still, it's amazing. Yeah, right? Yeah. And that's one of my favorite things that we strategically put it in the middle of the week. And it's one of my favorite things about the week is to go do my podcast and interview people who have their own expertise, and I get to learn from what they've done.
So give me the quick rundown. I know you do creative deals because you're involved with Pace, and everybody who's involved with Pace does amazing creative deals. Yeah. Talk to me about, I know you had a job, you were getting laid off, you decided to start investing in real estate. Yeah. What happened next?
Well, before I was laid off, I had joined Pace's community and learned about, I thought I was just learning about creative financing, but I had the opportunity to learn about all of the things. So I learned how to fix and flip. I wish he would have already been talking about RV parks. Maybe I would have been more focused on something and
he hadn't started talking about that more lately.
He has. And then how to wholesale. I had actually had my real estate license since 2013, doing it part-time. And I had never even heard of what wholesaling was until I joined.
Isn't it crazy how as agents, I got my license a long time ago. I'm probably in retirement. But you don't learn literally anything about commercial real estate. You just know that it's something different. You don't learn anything about wholesaling. Even though they're not trying to encourage us to do that, we should know that it exists.
1,000%.
And while I do think they give us quite a bit of training before you get your license, it misses so many of the important things. It's not the stuff that matters.
And I would argue that a lot of people who go and get their real estate license isn't to be an agent, but to eventually invest. I would say, dude, it's a misconception, right? People are constantly messaging me, yeah, but I don't have my license. Why do people think you need a real estate license? Because we don't know any other way. We don't know the way. That's why wonderful people like you having a louder voice on social media and letting people know, hey, I stumbled upon an RV park and they gave me all this money. What was it, $3 million or something? I was talking to my husband about it because I was like, we need to stumble upon our own. Like,
Okay, speaking of your husband, do you and us together?
yes, but he focuses more on our retail side. So he focuses on our like listings and buyers agent stuff. And then I focus on actually going after an asset.
And so we have lots of women in my community who work with their husbands, and it seems to be they either have a really good working relationship or it's like bad, right? Well, so how do y'all work together and stay sane? Do you have some like tips for people working with their spouse, or how do you do that?
I think it's like anything, even in business, when you have non-spouses, like if you have clear roles of who's doing what, then there's less miscommunication. So he knows that I'm the math girl. Like I will go after underwriting and understanding whether something's worth going after. He's actually really good at getting ARVs. So we complement each other in that way. I'm like, hey, will you tell me what this ARV is? So I have to go roll out the math. And that's the way we work with each other when we're underwriting. But generally speaking, I'm seeking opportunities. So I focus like on our acquisitions. Yeah. And he focuses on disposition, like selling our properties once we flip them. Or again, the retail side where he's helping buyers and sellers. So because we have that clear divide of who's doing what, we don't have like issues per se. Like I don't know the issues that other folks are running into. But we also have actually a very similar relationship to you where he takes care more of the home. Like he knows I'm happy with the good old steak any night because I'm more on the carnivore side of eating. And so I'm a simple gal. I don't know.
So he's staying home, taking care of your house. Yeah, helping the kids. Yeah, you got teenagers now.
Teenagers. He's their official Uber. Yeah.
Okay. And I know, so my husband stays home with our kids, and he sometimes feels like, and with little kids it's probably different, but he feels like it's a role that sometimes is less than other roles, and it doesn't get the same, because people do like, oh, you're a stay-at-home parent, or oh, you're this, and it gets a little bit of a negative connotation, as opposed to like the glamorous whatever your job is. Yeah. How does he deal with that?
I would say that the initial transition into how we were going to divide and conquer was a little tough. I would be lying if that wasn't the case. But I also like to bring facts to the table where it's like, do you realize that somebody doing all the things that you're doing would make at least like 150 grand a year?
Dude, it's crazy.
And so once you kind of put some facts into how much support that actually is.
So when you and it's not just monetary, when you look at the psychology of it and how it affects the like babies from certain ages, how they turn out when they're like raised by their parents' house as opposed to putting them in daycare. Yeah. And like it's actually this role that should be celebrated. And South Lawyers, our culture is not good about it. I'm in Colombia. I'm from South America. So yeah, I am like as white as they come. And my husband is Chinese. Yeah. And he's from Singapore and Hong Kong, and there they bring nannies. Yeah, and from the Philippines. Yes, from like the time they're born, they live with them. They cook, they clean, they take care of the kids. They take them everywhere. And like my mother-in-law would kill me for saying this, but they had very little responsibilities as it comes to raising kids. But then their kids have these problems and need therapy as they get older because they weren't attached to a parent. I see. And so when you look into the psychology of it, like that role, and I think Mexican culture does a good job of like, oh, is it damn?
Mark, my husband is half Mexican, so he was actually raised by his mom and his grandmother.
Yes, it'll celebrate the women are mom and grand from our,
at least in his family, the women have a higher role, like they're revered a bit more. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, everybody takes care of mom and grandma, and we like celebrate them, and you show up, this mom was going to be there. Yeah. And so I feel like we're missing that in American culture, and we think of that as like a less than role. In reality, it's like one of the most important. Yes, okay. I love that we agree with that, because I think they could get in their heads really easy.
Well, absolutely. And I would tell him, like, do you know the level of stress you're relieving me from when I know our kids are being taken care of? And that I don't have to think about what are we cooking tonight. Like those two stressors, like are something I don't think about. I don't think about because I know my husband is holding it down. So
I love that for you. And that's a huge blessing because not everybody has that.
No, 1,000%. I'm very happy.
So I heard that what time you bought a property had been tell him.
We actively fix and flip here in Maricopa County, Arizona. And when I see a really good deal, I'll go after it. And so there's been times where, and I would say it's happened more than once, where I'm like, deal, let's go. And I post about it on Instagram because I'm trying to be active on social media about it. And then I forgot that I didn't tell him we're buying a house. And just like, wait, Instagram? That's how I found out. And so that's literally, it's happened more than once.
I love that.
Listen, y'all, I know today's episode is inspiring, but inspiration alone will never carry us to our ultimate goals. That's why I started the Society of Entrepreneurial Women. It's a mastermind for high-performing female investors and entrepreneurs who are living their lives unapologetically. In a world where most people don't get us, or they try to keep us confined in a small box, the Society exists to turn off the brakes and set you free. We have weekly calls covering investing, wealth building, health, relationships, family, and a whole lot more. We have small tribes to hold each other accountable to our goals. We have in-person, ladies-only retreats to disconnect and drive each other towards our dreams. And most importantly, this is a community where you can be unapologetically you. Celebrate your wins, scream your successes from the top of the rooftop, become best friends with women who get you. We're 3 years in, and I can honestly say my best friends today are all from the Society. Click the link in the show notes to learn more.
Okay, so with working with your husband, how do you divide like your conversations? Are you the couple who wants to always be talking about business, or does one of you say, okay, I've heard enough, we need to talk about a different topic, I'm sick of this?
I'm the one that's always on. And I have a really hard time.
So I find that women are that way. Even my program director is here in Phoenix with me, and she stayed in the room with my daughter and I. And at like 1 a.m. yesterday, she's like, Heather, we need the titles for this. We need the titles for that. Let's run through that. I feel like as women, our brains don't turn off.
Now, I actually think that's one of the reasons why more women need to be investing is because we are super calculating. We're constantly, you thought about responsibility. Yes, yes. And so it can be a blessing and a curse because then it's hard to turn it off. And, 9 p.m., 10 p.m. rolls around. Husband barely puts his head on the pillow and he's dead asleep. And I'm still thinking about, did we pay all our mortgages? Like, did everything clear? We, like those types of things. So, yeah, how you felt. It can be heavy, right? Yeah. And I think I saw a video recently talking about it's not just like the responsibilities that you see. It's all those other ones, like remembering the kids' birthdays. What groceries do we have? What are we planning for? And so having that, I don't know if I'm calling like a stay-at-home husband, that husband that's more involved in the family that traditionally we're used to is a huge weight lifted. Not having to have some of those responsibilities. It's like you said, it kind of frees up your mental space.
For a good chunk of our lives, even though our kids don't remember, like from 2006 to 2017 before he got his license, I was actually doing two things. I was trying to do real estate as an agent and I had a full-time job. So it did come as a huge relief when he became a full-time agent, made just as much as he was doing in his W-2. Like I wish he had done it sooner because he realized how quickly he was able to make his corporate job in such a short amount of time without as much effort. And so, but for that good 11 years, I felt like I had a lot on my plate.
Yeah.
Because he was working really weird hours. He would go to work at like 4 or 5 a.m. because he worked at a warehouse. He'd come home, he'd go get the kids. He'd be really, really tired and constantly napping because his hours were just so hard on us. So, working through the weekends. So I feel like now we have a lot more family time.
Real estate has truly like changed your family dramatically.
Oh, dramatically, for sure. Yeah. And then especially learning like the creative ways because
Something I want to talk to you about that I feel like a lot of women struggle with. I hear this in our sales calls. The women, though, like, but I need the stability of my job. I have to have insurance, or I've got to know that my kids are fed. Like, keeping this job that I have is what does that for us. You have a little bit different perspective with that.
Well, I've only really been in that role now for a year, even though we started real estate investing in 2021, because I did have a high paying, 6-figure job, and to have to then pivot to real estate 100%. I don't think that that's been like, okay, easiest.
We were talking about you laying people off that didn't deserve to be laid off.
Yeah.
So
yes.
Talk about that so that they understand, like,
oh, yeah,
the jobs aren't stable.
So, yeah, exactly. Jobs are not stable. That is the catalyst for me looking for a mentorship back in 2020. Through COVID and all of that, I was in food service. I had to lay people off that I didn't feel deserved it and they were really smart, and it kind of caught me off guard. And I was like, oh my gosh, just a matter of time when they're going to lay me off. I mean, like, I'm a huge expense to them, especially at the salary level I was at. I was like, I would let me go. Like, it's an easy way to make some of that money back. And that's just really the corporate thought, right? So to your point, it's not something that is safe.
It's like a false sense of security, right?
Yes.
And same with when they talk about like my retirement or my insurance. Like, I'm not going to lie, our insurance is expensive. There's 7 of us on it. I have 5 kids, myself and my husband, and our insurance is like $1,500 a month. But I just know that that's like $18,000 more a year that I have to make. It's not necessarily like oh, I have insurance, so I need to keep my job. It's okay, I'm the numbers. It's like you said, you're a numbers girl. It's not that you could still have insurance. You just have to do the math on what it's going to cost you, and that's how you need another property to make up for your insurance.
Yeah, no, totally. You do start thinking about it differently because you have to. You have to figure it out differently than you would when you have a job.
Yeah. So what is something that you're working on? It doesn't have to be real estate related that you're really excited about right now.
I don't think anything like that exists in my world. It's all real estate related. I am looking more at businesses. So beyond real estate, I have started considering, why am I not running a business, having had almost 20 years of corporate experience and having a lot of leadership experience that.
So I think it's a common misconception that we invest in real estate because we do want financial freedom, right?
Yeah.
The financial freedom does not mean that I want to sit on a beach and drink margaritas. I make it like 3 days doing something like that, and I am bored out of my freaking mind.
Yes.
And anybody who's had any like extended vacation, if you have our personalities, you realize I've come up with like 7 other businesses by now and probably bought 2 or 3 more properties if you leave me sitting there by myself doing nothing. It's so.
Do you tell your husband when you buy a property?
I do now because I learned that like where he's with the kids all day, his mind, he like needs that extra like stimulation. So he's like, tell me about what you did today. So I can get excited about it too. But I think that misconception that we want real estate so that we like sit on the beach and that's what financial freedom. For me, financial freedom is like control of my time. So I can say yes to what I want to and no to what I don't. If I want to take the week off and take my kids to Disney, I can. But it's not to do nothing. Do you agree?
I agree with you.
And so I think that mindset is causing real estate investors because we thought like, oh, I want this financial freedom, but it wasn't what they told us it meant. So we're like, what else can I do with my brain and my skills? And everyone's kind of going into this like, I want a business. Because you have the cash flow.
Right.
You've learned some skills with real estate, previous corporate jobs that transfer.
Yes.
And and everybody sees Cody Sanchez, right?
I love Cody. Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I need a business.
Yeah.
So what have you started looking at? How are you evaluating them? Where are you finding deals?
Right now, literally just going to biz buy sell, and then I'm using the keyword retiring because that's a different kind of motivation with sellers of businesses. And then honestly, it's not even, and I was recently taught this by a good friend of mine who is in roofing. He has no idea about roofing, but he's been able to fix their top line just by doing some of the fundamental things that he's learned just being in real estate.
Even marketing.
Yeah.
Right? Lots of the businesses don't have marketing.
No.
They don't have administrative systems and process.
Yeah.
Billing, accounting, paperwork. Totally. They have no processes.
And for me, it's like if I can see myself doing something like the business I'm looking at, it's not any one particular business. I was looking at a landscape one. I was looking at a glass place. I was looking like it didn't matter what it was. I mean, I was in food service where you deal with so many things from like supply chain to route optimization. I was looking at a logistics company.
Okay, so I think what you're talking about is important to point out. Yeah, because when I meet people, they're like, oh, I'm not interested in this or I'm not interested in that. I think that is a really, really limiting belief.
Yeah.
Because never as a kid did I say, oh my God, I want to like own RV parks and mobile home parks. Like I am not fired up about the idea of a trailer park, right? But you can find aspects of the business that make you really excited.
Yes.
Like with RV parks, I get crazy. First of all, I love the camp store. I love like buying all the items that people are going to get and like the sales of that. But I also love like pushing the revenue. like the game for me of like how much money can I pump out of that business and like what can I turn it into makes me so freaking excited. It's not the RV aspect. So I think that's like a skill to not get have that limiting belief of like, whatever the business is you're looking at, roofing, right? And be like, what can I get excited about with this roofing business? And you can outsource the rest. Yes. You can hire people to your team for the rest, the stuff that like you don't get excited about.
I mean, that's inclusive of real estate. We own short-term rentals. I don't run them, right? My property management.
Right, and there's girls who love, we're at a conference right now for people who love like decorating their short-term rentals. And they love, you gotta pick those things. Yeah. And be okay with saying like, dude, I hate this part. Yeah. Even though some other people might love it.
Mm-hmm. But I also can respect and love seeing people love it. Yeah, that's your thing. Do your thing, girl. Like, it's just not my thing. My thing, I think it's more numbers, dollars, like,
you all have to add relationships to that. You are great at that part.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, one of the silly numbers that I've always held to close to my heart is when I was in corporate. I was with one of my companies for almost 16 years. I had one of the best retention percentages in the company. Only one other department did. Yeah, I used to be extremely proud of how I was able to grow leaders under me and in my department. You know, they never wanted to leave. I grew my department and people didn't like, they were there to stay. They loved the culture, I think, that we were able to transpire in the department. I would even argue separate from the culture that was happening around us, because there was no other woman who was at the level I was other than one IT gal. Everybody else was like a supervisor or below. It was really hard to see a manager or a director. And my goal was to get to director level. And so I went at it competitively like anything else. Like, you know, we have to have really great attendance. People have to want to be here. Like, I want them to feel like I'm listening to them. Like, we would have these meetings, or we called them skip level meetings, and I would regularly have them. And I was like, nope, your supervisor's not here. I want to know, what could we be doing better? What aren't they doing good? Like,
so how did you transfer that skill into your real estate business?
I don't know if I've necessarily have. And I think that is why I feel like I'm missing out on something that I was really passionate about.
That's why you're going after the business.
Yeah, I feel like I could go, like, when I think about my heart's desire, one of the things that I loved doing in the corporate world was making people feel happy in a place they're going to spend a good chunk of their time. And I'm like, wouldn't that be great to have
missing from my culture, right?
Absolutely.
Like, oh, it's Monday, or I can't wait for Friday.
Yeah. I go around like, hey, how was your weekend? What'd you guys do? How are your kids? Like, but genuinely care, because it's not just for like the words. It's to really know that you care about these people and the fact that they care enough to get up and be in the office with you.
Ladies, it's time to redefine the conference experience with the Society of Entrepreneurial Women Retreats. Step inside a world tailored for women just like you, where you can lead, learn, and unwind in style. Our retreats offer everything from insightful investing sessions to fun activities like salsa dancing, boat cruises, food tours, and so much more, ensuring you come back not just inspired, but truly refreshed. Join a community that celebrates you wholly and supports your every endeavor. Ready for a retreat that changes the game? Visit the link in our show notes and find out how you can be part of this exclusive experience.
So, speaking of kids, you have a 15 and an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
Man, I can't imagine like for kids who are like stable on their own and taking care of themselves. But as you're getting into some of those ages where they're thinking about careers, what are your conversations like? Are they interested in real estate? Are you encouraging them to go to college?
I am sort of encouraging them to go to college, only if it's not at a detriment of like, financial detriment. So my son is thinking about going to a local community college. My daughter, she's an athlete and she wants to be like a D1 soccer athlete at like a university. So they have very different wants. My son wants to be a voice actor. I did have him reading, Rich Dad, Poor Dad at age of 12, which was a small blip in his grades, I feel, because he's like, what's the point of going to school? Like, so that book could fire back, just FYI. But then he understood a lot more entrepreneurship stuff. So like he's got his own little Fiverr account now. He's trying to do like get get hired for voice acting and already actively doing that. He works at Jersey Mike's. Shout out to Jersey Mike's. I mean, like and learning a lot of responsibilities. He used to work at Raising Cane's before that. And I see things in him that I think would have been hard for me to teach him, especially when you have, there's nothing they don't need in my house, right?
Yep.
So it's nice actually to have them go out there, work, and like experience what does that look like? What does it mean to see your paycheck after so many hours and it not be
taxes?
enough?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I always think about, I don't know if did you grow up watching Friends?
Yes.
Oh, when Rachel was like, FICA, who's FICA? What did they take my money? And so that he had an experience like that. And I was like, good, son, do you see? And then I'll talk about my deals and how much we've made. And I remember I made a really, really big wholesale fee where we walked away with $100,000. And the amount of time I spent on it, I think was 33 minutes. And I told him, I go, what does that equal in hours? Do you think your jobs would pay you that? Just to kind of get their brains cranking. I think for me, it's been difficult still to kind of influence them to be more entrepreneurial. But I do talk about it so that if it's something they desire, that they know it's a possibility.
Yeah. I love that you're not like directing them in one way or the other. They're getting to kind of choose that and stumble through it.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about, because kids have all these wild ideas about what they're going to do. And we had them too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize, okay, even though that's fun, it doesn't pay the bills.
Yeah.
Because the work is actually meant to figure out how to pay your mortgage if you have one and buy yourself groceries and things like that. So I think it's important to let them.
We have talked about like, let's figure out a way for you guys to get rentals and have the rentals pay for your lifestyle. So that way you can go and do whatever your heart desires, right? Like, and that doesn't limit you in what you want to go after. I mean, I worked when I went to ASU before I went to ASU, I was a college athlete at some of the local colleges here. And I had to work. I worked through it all and go to school and play sports. And so juggling all the things is not new to me. But I don't want them to do that. I want them to.
Okay. But don't you think that teaches you like perseverance and getting back up and doing it when it's hard? And so now that lots of us grew up like poor and had to do things like that, and we're like, we want these better lives for our kids. But now that my kids are getting a little older and they're not quite as old as yours yet. So I'm curious how you think about this. How do you recreate that environment where they have to figure out how to make ends meet, put things together, do more things that are possible? Because that's what gives us the skills to do what we do now.
Yeah, I don't know, because even going through that experience as a young person, I also kind of resented my parents for having me be in that position.
Do you still feel that way?
I think I do. It's terrible to say I feel because there's a lot that I've learned, but I also had a really difficult childhood. I feel like, I've gotten a lot of like I've learned my grit. Like there's plenty of experiences that I didn't need to go through that as well.
Yeah.
But like, I'll give you an example. Like my mom used to live closer to my college. So when I was going to go to college, it would have been easier just to stay living with her. But then she moved further away. So I had to go figure it out. I had to go rent a room. I sub-2'd my very first card. I didn't know that. Like my friends' families were like, they allowed me to take over their payments, and I was able to like have a card to get to and from school.
But think about the problem solving skills and all that stuff that you got from that.
I think there's a lot of good, but it's also a lot of complicated because our psychology is not that simple when it comes to our parents. I do agree with you in that, like, if I imagine myself having them be built into my business a bit more so they could learn what it takes to make money and have strategy involved and understanding how it impacts other people's lives. Like, I think that's how I would teach them that more than like feel like they're kind of on their own.
Hard way.
Yeah.
Yeah. The feelings of like you're doing this by yourself, because I have had way too many terrible experiences to list, but I always knew that my mom was there in like my support system, even though she may not have been able to like give it to me. She was there to support it, give ideas, and listen to me cry and whatever it was. So I never had that feeling of like I'm by myself, I'm on my own.
Yeah.
I think also like your religion plays into that too.
Yeah.
Because as I look back in all those situations, God has always taken care of me, even if I didn't realize it was happening in the situation. And being able to have that support system is a lot different when you're going through the moments that build that grit.
Yeah. Like I was mentioning, I had a hard time when I was younger, and part of that kind of residual moved into my 20s. And so I actually didn't have a relationship with God during that time. And I feel like if it wasn't for me getting back into entrepreneurship, like, about 4 years ago, and hearing other people like yourself actually being more open to talk about God and how much faith, the amount of faith you have to have in yourself spills over into knowing that there's a bigger, stronger pulling out there.
We'll say when things aren't working out.
Yeah.
As opposed to just thinking, oh my gosh, I've wasted all this time or this is all falling apart.
Yeah.
Knowing that God's plan is always better than mine. Every situation.
Yeah.
Even if it takes me a few years to see why, you look back and you're like, I'm so glad that did not work out the way I wanted it to.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And I thank God that I was led to entrepreneurship because it allowed me to come back to God. I actually did a podcast in Spanish. And I was talking about it, how grateful I am that I found entrepreneurship because when I was in the corporate job, I had for naught. It was a steady, comfortable, and without having the up and downs that come through entrepreneurship, that faith has to kind of blossom because it's really hard to get through it without it.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
Ingrid, where can they find out more about you?
Yeah. Mostly on Instagram. It's Ingrid with a Y, Ingryd. I know it's hard to spell sometimes. And on YouTube. So yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks for being here with us today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Remember, authenticity is your superpower. Stay unapologetically yourself, and let's continue embracing our uniqueness together. Make sure you hit that follow button so you don't miss the next episode.